What's up, everybody? In this video, we're going to be talking about adult children of emotionally immature parents. And the author is Lindsay Gibson. And the author is a psychologist and a therapist, which I think is one of the reasons why this book is so good. And the subtitle is How to Heal from Distant, Rejecting, or Self-Involved Parents. Before we start the video, I wanted to ask everybody if they could like this video and subscribe to this channel to support me. And in the description to this video, I also included some ways to support me, which includes, if you buy this book, use an Amazon affiliate link so that you can help me out. And then I also have a buy me a coffee link where you can buy me one coffee to as many coffees as you want, and one coffee is equal to $1. So who might need this book? I mean, this book could apply to a lot of people. The way I heard about it is through my therapist. He recommended it. And the reason he recommended it to me is just for the relationship with my parents and how to deal with that. And one of the ways to do that is to be observationally detached. And this means to be detached from your parents, but you still connect with them, but it's more observational versus getting emotional over the ways that they react to you or don't react to you or don't care about your emotions, things like that. But this book could apply to a lot of people, whether you're stuck in your life and you don't know where to go and you don't know why you are the way you are. A lot of us, it's because of our parents. Our parents are the way we're programmed. They're the first people in our lives. They teach us how to be who we are. So if you're stuck in your life and there's a lot of bad things going on, then your parents have something to do with that. Or it could alternatively be how to deal with your parents right now in sort of a toxic relationship and trying to identify the toxic things going on in your relationship. And I think the third place where this could apply is if you're in a bad relationship right now, you've been in bad relationships and you're wondering why you're in those relationships. A lot of times it's because of the relationships you had with your parents and the impact that has on your life. So those are like the three areas where I could see people wanting to get this book. And this book isn't very well known. I don't think I've ever heard of it before my therapist recommended it. So that's how I heard of it. And I think it could apply to a lot of people though. So that's why I'm going to go over it. And I've been meaning to go over it for a while. I just haven't gotten around to it. So this book is 10 chapters long. And it goes basically how you think it would go. It identifies the problem. And for the majority of the beginning of the book, it's identifying and building the problem. In the end is how to get over the problem and what to expect in the life after you solve the problem, after you learn how to deal with your parents, what a normal life looks like. Because if you grew up around bad parents, then you don't know what a normal life looks like. So that's what the end of this book is about. So the first chapter is emotional loneliness from being with an emotionally immature parent. And this is just, if you have emotionally immature parents, then the beginning of your life was probably pretty lonely. And the fact that you felt lonely is not something that was wrong or unusual, because if you have emotionally immature parents, then that's more likely to happen. And another thing this book talks about is how this problem came to be. And the author says the reason that there's so many emotionally immature parents, or there was because of older generations. And my parents are baby boomers, and their parents treated them from an emotionally distant perspective, right? It was better to be seen rather than heard. So that's why they grew up the way they were. My parents were pretty distant and just not really emotionally connective. So that's just the way that an author identifies of how this problem grew. And this problem is a real problem because this person's obviously a therapist and dealt with a lot of people. And that's a good thing about this book, is it has a lot of stories of the patients that the author dealt with. Not only that, but also has a lot of exercises to help you determine if your parents were emotionally immature, and also the impacts it has on your life. So there's a lot of exercises in case if you don't feel like you actually have a problem, maybe you don't. And I think that's another thing to keep in mind, not only when you're dealing with this book, but just self-help in general, is not to just get in this constant victimhood mindset. And that's where I think Tony Robbins is really good, because he says you can't constantly be analyzing the past. At some point, you have to draw the line and move forward. But I also don't think you can move forward without analyzing your past and like figuring out your programming and then changing it. Tony Robbins helps you change your programming, but I think you have to. I think you have to identify why you make some of the mistakes you're doing. You have to be able to observe yourself, and this is one of those books to help you do that. But I don't think you should latch on to having emotionally immature parents and that be your identity and use that as a scapegoat for the rest of your life as to why you're not pursuing your goals. So that's something else I would encourage people not to do. And some characteristics of an emotionally immature parent is that they are rigid and single-minded. They do what feels best for themselves. They are egocentric. They have low empathy. They promote role reversal. And that's one thing I like about this book too, is the identity of a role. Because a lot of times in our families, we play a role. Your parent wants you to be a victim, or your parent wants you to role reverse, like it says here, where you're basically the parent. And I've seen this in my relationships where the person that I was with became the parent for their parent and really identified as the parent of their parents. And that happens a lot with emotionally immature parents. And a lot of times you'll do that if you have emotionally immature parents, because you'll be the one with an emotion and with empathy, and they won't. But also just roles in general. Like in my family, I play a certain role. And whenever I'm with my family, I feel myself playing that role, and it's just not your true self. And that's the other good thing about this book, is the identity of the true self. We all have a true self, or we feel like we have a true self. And sometimes our family holds us back, society holds us back. But you do have a true self, and that's what you should pursue. And maybe you have to move away from your family, get away from your family to do that. And identifying your emotions and not reacting negatively to them, learning how to adapt to them is part of becoming your true self. And maybe your family didn't let you do that. Maybe they made fun of you when you're emotional or had certain emotions, or just didn't want to listen to them. But you have to learn how to listen to those, maybe pursue your dreams, because maybe those emotions are pushing you towards your dreams. And another thing that the book does is identifies 4 types of emotionally immature parents. One is an emotional parent, and they says this is the most infantile. They have difficulty tolerating stress or just emotions in general. The second type of emotional immature parent is a driven parent. The third type of emotionally immature parent is a passive parent. And a lot of these types of parents interact with another parent. Like if you're a passive parent, I didn't understand how that was negative. But then if you have a really mean parent, then a passive parent is very good. And then the fourth type of emotionally immature parent is a rejecting parent. And this means this is the type of parent that likes to be left alone. They have children, but they don't really want to deal with the children or their emotions. So that's another type of emotionally immature parent. And then this book goes on to talk about internalizers versus externalizers. And the book internalizers are people that internalize the difficulties of having an emotionally immature parent. And I think that's the type of person that I am. And it says that type of person is more sensitive, but also like more able to deal with having an emotionally immature parent, because you absorb everything and you reflect, but it can be torturous. But externalizers, they externalize everything, and they're always flipping their emotions out into the external world. And the book says that those people are going to have the toughest time in their life because everything is external. Everything is dealt with externally. It's not internally reflective, not learning from your past. And that was one interesting thing about this book that I never thought of before, is like the internalizer versus externalizers. I've known extrovert versus introvert, but this is a little bit different. And that the therapist in this book talks about how difficult it would be for an externalizer. So that's just something to keep in mind and something to investigate if you want to buy this book. And then this book ends like I told you, how it tells you how to turn yourself, how to adapt to your parents. Well, most likely you're an adult if you're reading this. And then the type of life you can expect But one of the main things I could say is like, or one of the best things I could say is like, don't fantasize that a parent will change. And that was kind of the scenario that I was in, that I could mold myself to get my parents to change, or my parent to change, to react the way I wanted to, that they would be proud of me in a certain situation, that they would stop being so negative about everything in life. And this book and my therapist taught me that's not going to happen. And at some point, you yourself have to also learn that, if you have an emotionally immature parent as well, to learn that they're not going to change, and you could still be involved in their lives, unless it's really toxic, but you could still be involved in their life, but you just have to be kind of observationally detached. And you can't do the things that trigger you and trigger them. So, in conclusion, if you have emotionally immature parents, or you think you do, then I would suggest you pick this book up. It's very interesting, especially if you've dealt with any of this before. So it's very interesting. It's not that well known, and I would definitely recommend it. And that's all for this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video.